event that we created during COVID, and it's called the Business Survival Toolkit. These events are strictly online. We'll be doing them throughout the whole rest of the year. I'm sure we'll be doing them into 2021 as well, because we've had great content, amazing speakers that we've had so far. And really, this event would not be possible without the support of our amazing underwriters, Security National Bank. Thank you so much for supporting this event and our entire series. My name is Catherine Harrington. For you that may not know, I'm president of the Chamber of Commerce. And if you don't mind putting, as we kind of flow into the room here, putting yourselves on that mute, yep. You have full control over the mute and everything today in the chat room, so we encourage you to use that. We're going to learn so much today during the Business Survival Toolkit, and we really, again, appreciate our panelists for being involved. I would like to take a moment here and introduce our incredible stellar Chamber of Commerce team. Kara Matheson is head of our workforce development team. Yep, she's waving there. Bailey First is running our event today. She handles our social media, events, marketing. Anna Dowd is director of membership, strategic partnership. Nicole Langmaid handles our operations, our finance. And so we're an incredible team. We work really, really hard every day to create new ideas that help support our West Des Moines community during these challenging times. So just a little mechanics for today. You can choose the speaker view or gallery view as you're watching. That speaker view will kind of literally put us up on that stage, whoever's talking at the moment. Or you can do gallery view and see what friends might be on the line. Excuse me. The chat feature will be open and live, so feel free to chat as well. This will be recorded, so if you would like to share this event with friends afterward, we highly encourage you to do that. Thank you again to our sponsors that help make this event possible. I'm so happy now to introduce Amy Boyce, who has an amazing voice. She is Ariane's Manager of Culture and People Development, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about Ariane. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you to the West Des Moines Chamber for executing this special edition of the Business Survival Toolkit for not only our community as we continue to learn to further support diversity, inclusion, and equity, but also our workplaces as we learn and grow together. My name is Amy Boyce, and I'm the Manager of Culture and People Development at Ariane. For those of you who aren't familiar with Ariane, Ariane is a 30-year-old local business solutions provider that supports the Midwest. We offer reliable business solutions to our clients so that they can focus on their day-to-day operations. Not only is Ariane committed to keeping our clients connected, secure, and productive, but we are also absolutely committed to the talent and cultural developments of our employees. So my role is really focused on partnering our leaders and our individual contributors to help them find ways to grow and develop at work. And Ariane has established several committees that I help to oversee that really supports our culture. And those include Thrive, which is really all about our physical, emotional, and our financial well-being. Fusion, which helps us on our journey to understand what diversity and inclusion really means. Cares, concentrated on supporting our local communities financially and with our volunteer efforts. And lastly, we got to have some fun at work. So we have a Celebrates committee, which facilitates events to help us connect with each other in fun ways. If you'd like to learn more about Ariane, you can check us out. Please visit ariane.com. And I'd like to now turn it back over to Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Oh my gosh, you're really in charge of a lot there. That's amazing. I love your names. Thrive, Celebrates, inclusion. Very, very cool. Very inventive. Thank you for sharing that. That's super neat. So I'd like to introduce now our second sponsor that helps support this event. Ray Meister is Iowa Market President of Security National Bank. Thank you so much, Ray.
Good morning, Catherine. You are welcome, and thank you for allowing us to be a sponsor of this wonderful series of programs. Security National Bank is new to the West Des Moines area. We opened early in May, right in the middle of the COVID environment, and frankly, it's gone very well. We are an Omaha-based banking organization, approximately $1 billion in assets. We have 14 locations, including this one in West Des Moines. We are very proud of the fact that we did participate in the PPP loan program. Company-wide, we did approximately 800 loans, a little bit north of $150 million, which frankly had an impact on businesses and employees, totaling about 17,000 employees company-wide. So very proud of that fact. We are truly a community business-minded bank. One of the things I thought in the spirit of today's program, I would just speak a little bit about our core values. Basically, we have 4, and those are to inspire and achieve excellence, not only from our employee standpoint, but work hard to help our clients and customers achieve excellence. Doing the right thing with integrity, honesty, and authenticity. We work hard every day to not only earn our teammates' trust, but also our client and our customer trust by being fully engaged with their businesses on a daily basis. And last but not least, we acknowledge, recognize, and celebrate everyone's hard work by celebrating our successes. Again, on behalf of Security National Bank, thank you to the West Des Moines Chamber for allowing us to be a sponsor of such a great program. And I am looking forward to today's group of esteemed panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ray. I love your core values: inspire, achieve, excellence, doing the right thing, celebrate. There's that celebrate word again, Amy. Yeah, it looks like, yeah, yeah. So I love it. So thank you so much, Ray. And again, thank you for your support. So, you know, a little bit about some of the past events that we've had for the Business Survival Toolkit Series. Just to educate you a little bit, we've done one on financial support during COVID. That's so key. Business continuity during COVID. How do you keep your business up and running? Like Ray was saying, you know, that PPP support was so huge for so many of our West Des Moines businesses. Revving up your social media. I mean, right now, digital is so key for businesses. And then today, so relevant, we thought we'd cover the important topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what we can do to support this in our workplace, our organizations, and us as individuals as well. Now, you know, in light of the tragic events that happened a month ago with George Floyd, individuals and companies right now are trying best to understand, how can we help? How can we be an ally? And what are some of the tools in our toolbox that we can use to support this effort, create a safe space for conversation, and make sure that all diverse voices are heard? And you know what? We at the Chamber also took some time to look at ourselves. We realized we too need to do better as an organization. We need to be a leader and a model in our community for others to follow. We also need to be deliberate in our understanding of the past so we can build a path, a positive path for the future of our community. And from now on, in all areas of our programming, we're going to be asking ourselves, do we have diverse voices at the table? Are we involving our Black and African, sorry, I don't know, I'm getting choked up, crazy. Are we involving our Black and African American community in the conversation? How can we include all diverse backgrounds that represent West Des Moines and our community? The Chamber is so pleased to announce that we have launched a brand new committee focusing on just that: diversity, inclusion, and equity. And this will be led by Angela Jackson. And she is one of our panelists today as well. So we are so excited that she's here. She's also our treasurer for the Chamber and does a lot on behalf of the Chamber and our community. She's a dynamo, and we're so excited to have her involved. I've been educating myself so much on this topic. I think that's why I'm crying. So I'm sorry. You know, it's hard learning about a lot of the stuff that's been going on. So we're going to learn a lot today, though. And I want to pass the virtual stage that we're on today to Teree Caldwell-Johnson and Deidre DeJear. Teree is CEO at Oakridge Neighborhood, and Deidre is owner at Caleo Enterprises, and they're going to educate us today on what's called the one economy. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm handling the remote on this slide correctly, so give me just a moment. Thank you, Catherine, for that introduction, and it's a wonderful opportunity to share our One Economy work with the West Des Moines Chamber. Let me try it one more time. Okay, there we go. So again, thank you, and we'll get started. Just to give you, you know what, Bailey, I don't think I'm able to get him to advance. Let me try it one more time. You know what, Bailey, if you don't mind advancing from your end, that way we can just keep going. So just to give everybody some background, and I really appreciate Catherine's introduction, because today's presentation comes as a really difficult moment in our nation's history. We've all been the witness of a steady stream of killing by police of unnamed and unarmed Black men, women, and children. And beneath the intensity of this moment is a really painful truth. Despite undeniable progress, Black people living in the United States are not yet equal to our white counterpoints. On nearly every measure of progress or success, Blacks fall short of our white counterpoints. And while some may wish to argue these truths, today we will share data that illuminates the impact of systemic racism on individuals of African descent right here in Polk County. If you want to go to the next slide, let me just share with you who is Black Polk County. So African Americans and Africans are about 4% of Iowa's total population. African Americans and Africans are about 7.1% of the Polk County population. And right here in Des Moines, African Americans and Africans are about 11% of the total population, which makes Des Moines the highest proportion of African Americans in any city or town. And in West Des Moines, Africans and African Americans comprise about 4.6% of the total population. And finally, when you really look at African Americans across our entire county, approximately 31% of African Americans and African households live at or below the federal poverty line, which for a family of four is about $26,200. Next slide. So for the better part of the last 6 years or so, Deidre and I have been involved in an effort called One Economy. It was funded initially by the Northwest Area Foundation, which is located up in the Twin Cities. And since launching this work, we've also received some financial support from United Way, the Community Foundation of Greater Des Moines, and Wells Fargo. This is an initiative that's focused on the racial wealth divide, and in particular, the racial wealth divide as it applies to individuals of African descent. We're joined in this work by 5 other cities in the country that are also funded by the Northwest Area Foundation: Des Moines, Seattle, Tacoma, Portland, and Minneapolis, and St. Paul. And for our work, we have used both qualitative and quantitative research to establish baseline data in the areas of housing, health, employment, education, and financial inclusion. And we've also developed some goals and informed some strategies to create a framework for action that we'll talk about a little later. Next slide. So let's talk about what the data tells us. If you want to go to the next slide, Bailey. Our story really is a tale of two cities. In 2017, Greater Des Moines was the 11th best place to live in the United States, while also being the 3rd worst city in the United States for African Americans. We were the 2nd best city to find a job. However, at the same time, nearly 16.7% of African Americans were unemployed. We were the #1 location for millennial home buyers, while at the same time, only 1.4% of all home mortgages were made to individuals of African descent. And finally, we were the #5 best city for retirement. And if you really look at Blacks in Des Moines, less than 11% of our households have retirement income. So let's see what happened when we look at
Terry? Yeah, I think her.
Did she freeze? I wasn't sure.
let me go off video. Can you hear me better now?
Yep, we got you back on. Thank you.
Okay, great. I went off video. That's probably better. 53.3% of the Black population is cost burdened through the rent that they pay. We are the 7th best city for living the American dream. And at the same time, 11.7% of African Americans are unemployed. And I dare say, in this post-COVID or during the COVID situation, recognizing the number of brown and Black individuals that were impacted by COVID, that number is probably significantly higher. And finally, we're the 4th best place for children, while at the same time, the graduation rate for African Americans, while is high at 86.9%, is still low, the total population. So I'm going to turn it over to Deidre now to talk a little bit more about some other key drivers and baseline data. Deidre?
Of course, thank you, Teree. Bailey, you can advance. So we are going to walk through just a few of the data point comparisons, not all of them that were contained in the report. You're looking at information from our newest edition, the blueprint, which will be unveiled later at the end of this month. And so the teal color is what is most current as it relates to our report, and the orange color is what we shared from 2017. Some of this data will be daunting, but it's important for us to give you just a little perspective in utilizing this information. Teree just shared the unemployment numbers. Again, this data does not speak to the impact that COVID has made on each and every one of these scenarios that we'll be discussing today, but it does share what it was pre-COVID. And so when we're looking at our unemployment rate, we do see a tad bit of growth there as it relates to unemployment. But what I'll ask you to notice is that at 2.3% unemployment for Blacks in the state of Iowa, look at the disparity that you see there statewide. It's about 3% there. And so that is something that One Economy seeks to do. When Teree talks about the tale of two cities, it's our hope that we will only have one tale, one city, one economy. We can advance. When we're looking at financial inclusion, this is a component of our lives that some learn to love and some always end up hating. But the fact of the matter is, we know that an individual's relationship with their financial institution, moves the ball a little bit further for them and helps them as it relates to creating sustainability in the household. When we look at Black residents in Des Moines, 22.1% are unbanked, meaning they don't have a relationship with the financial institution. They're probably using a prepaid card to load their funds, or going to check cashing places and things along those lines, compared to 3% of the entire state. It's a huge disparity. 31.8% of African Americans are underbanked. Underbanked meaning maybe they have a checking account, maybe they have a savings account, but they're probably only using one account with the financial institution. They don't have any loans or lines of credit. They're not maximizing the potential of that relationship because the relationship really doesn't exist. Again, the disparity there statewide, 13.5% of folks, that includes African Americans throughout the state, are underbanked. And that's something that we vastly have to work on when nearly 50% of our population has a minimal relationship with a financial institution. There has to be growth there for sustainability. And you can see the comparison in numbers from 2020 to 2017, a little bit of edge, but again, the disparity is still too strong, too great of one. We can advance. Leading to the loans component, you know, we talked about earlier about the lack of ability of African Americans to obtain loans, and what we have found is that African Americans are 2.2 times more likely to get denied for a loan. And so when we're thinking about you know, the situation that so many were in COVID, some have the luxury of, you know, drawing on a line of credit or going to the bank and saying, hey, can you give me a home equity line of credit just in case I need it? Our African American brothers and sisters were not well positioned to do that. And we see the proof in the pudding that even if they were well positioned, we just find it, the likelihood of them being approved for loans is 2 times more likely to not be approved for loans. Can advance. Then we look at the median household income. Now, mind you, this isn't one person's income. This is the median household income for African Americans, $33,816, compared to $63,000 of all of Polk County. That's $30,000. We all know right now what we could do with an additional $30,000. And our challenge is that, you know, we can't get enough money in these households. Finances, we know, impacts every single aspect of an individual's life. And if we can't get enough money in the household, we're challenged to resolve all of the other problems, all of the other indicators that exist in that family's life, because the finances is such a distraction. That is a disparity that we absolutely have to fix. We absolutely have to fix that disparity. And as I shared earlier, you saw a little bit of growth there from 2017 to 2020, but that disparity is just still there. It's still there. We can advance. And so now when we look at just a few of the data points, we're going to talk about what can happen right now. Please advance, Bailey. The most important part is that, you know, we have seen our systems collectively really just sit on the neck of African Americans over time. And these are systems that have been built that were not necessarily inclusive of the African American experience. And this data magnifies that, and COVID has magnified it even further. And I think it's important for us to celebrate the progress that we've made as a region, but also understand that we could be a lot farther than where we are right now if we're all invested in this work. And that is a part of what One Economy is. We'll ask you several times today that you can be a part of this. You can be a part of One Economy, but it takes us working in tandem to resolve these challenges. And so as you're looking through this data and hearing, what I'd like for you to do in the process is identify, okay, how does this connect to the work that I do? What is my place in One Economy? How can I add value in the work that I do in my community, so on and so forth, because it's literally going to take a village. Our goal is to make sure that our children's children are set up a lot better than their parents. That's the goal. And these are all challenging times for all of us. But the fact of the matter is, we know that this is going to take a lot of work, but that work is going to be so much more worth it in the long run, because we'll have systems and people who feel like they're valued being a part of the system. Because when we see a $30,000 difference, and we're telling a child that in high school, you know, you're probably not going to make as much as a man. You're probably not going to make as much as your white peers. That's a daunting reality. That doesn't have to be the case. And so when we talk about the fierce urgency of now, we're asking each and every one of you all to pour that urgency into this issue so that we can resolve these challenges once and for all. I'll push it back to Teree.
Thanks, Deidre. So now that you're armed with the data, and today's really supposed to be about giving you tools that you can use We thought we would also share with you a few things that you can either stop doing or start doing around the issues of racial equity. So Bailey, if you want to go to the next slide. Please stop saying all lives matter. Until Black lives matter equally, all lives cannot matter at all. Stop acting like it doesn't affect you. No matter where you live, you cannot escape the lingering impact of race. When you do, you remain part of the problem. Stop being afraid to do something. If you do something wrong, learn from it and move forward. Trust me, people will let you know when you're doing something wrong, but they'll also help you learn from it and move forward. Next slide. Stop saying you don't see color. When you do, what you're telling me is that you don't see a huge part of who I am, and it impacts our ability to have discussions that really matter. And then finally, stop using and weaponizing your privilege. Best described, privilege is one-upsmanship. It is associated with an attribute enjoyed by some, but not others. Things like wealth, position, power, and access. I challenge you to think about Amy Cooper in New York Central Park. A perfect example, not what I would suggest anyone do, but an example nonetheless of someone who is weaponizing their privilege. So let's talk about things that you can start doing. Start educating yourself about race, equity, and social justice. Today, I think, is a great start, and Deidre and I have shared some resources with Catherine and Bailey that they will be sharing with you later. Start having conversations about race with your children, no matter how hard it is. Not shying away from those conversations with your children will, in time, change the conversation I have to have with my children and my grandchildren. Start questioning both white and Black people and holding them accountable. I must do with my brothers and sisters the same things that I ask you to do with your white counterparts. Having those strong conversations and holding people accountable is really critical. Start showing up at rallies, protests, city council, and school board meetings. Show up not as a spectator, show up, speaking up, and asking for a call to action. Next slide. Meetings for conversations about the injustices that are happening, while also creating a space for learning. And finally, start understanding that representation matters. What you are doing to ensure there are other voices at the table in your corporations, on your boards, or in elected spaces is critical to the long-term policy things that we can do to impact racism. And remember, it is important to understand that when voices are not heard, someone is being silenced. So we'll move to the last slide and our last call to action. On June 30th, 2020, we're going to be rolling out our One Economy Blueprint for Action. We ask you to do 3 quick things. Read and become familiar with the report, all of its goals and strategies. Share the report with others and invite us to speak and share the data. Determine your role personally and that of your organization or sector. And finally, join a One Economy work group. And our final slide simply is, One Economy matters. You have a place in One Economy. We hope that you will join us in this work. Thank you, Catherine, for having us this morning. I'll turn it back over to you.
That was so educational and eye-opening. Yeah, no kidding. Oh my gosh. Amazing. Thank you so much, Teree and Deirdre. You know, I love that you gave us what you must start doing and stop doing. That is so, so special. I took pictures of all those slides. We started a resource page on our website as well. And can we have those slides on our resource page? I think it would be so important to share.
Sure.
I love it. So, so wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to pass the baton, the virtual stage, to Renee Hardman. Renee is CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Iowa, and she's also West Des Moines City Councilwoman. She serves on many, many boards and is a community champion. We're so excited to have Renee here today. I think this is one of maybe 6 speeches she's giving today. So thank you for your time this morning, Renee. And you're muted, Renee.
Yeah, I just noticed that. Thank you. Good morning, Catherine, and all of my friends on the panel. It's always really good to hear from my friends Deidre and Teree about One Economy. They certainly spoke to our city council about it last year, so it always is good information to have and be refreshed on. Congrats to you, Catherine, on your new role as the CEO of the West Des Moines Chamber. You've been on the run since day 1 of COVID. I think that was your first day, and you're really leaning into this space, and I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here to offer just a little bit of dialogue. I think we all know.
Got 10 minutes, so you're good to go.
Oh, okay, well, I want to be sensitive to other panels, so I'll get through it quickly. We've got a lot to share. The reason this discussion is so important is that we are at a critical period of time for our city, our state, and our country, where really, quite frankly, a floodlight has been cast upon a situation that has long been ignored for years. And, you know, for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, we watched the murder front row and center in our living room of a man by the name of Mr. George Floyd. And it affected and it traumatized us. It traumatized your children, because your children are in this movement, and a lot of them are in this fight, and a lot of them are out marching. And so it's really quite interesting how this situation, because there's been plenty other George Floyds, has really captured the essence and the passion of our young people. You know, as many allies have reached out to me lately, and many of them have, I've chosen to engage them in a discussion around power and really white privilege. So long, systematic racism has been ignored. It's not been discussed. It's really been quite buried. And systematic racism covers a lot of spectrums. You know, it's racial, it's judicial, it's in the education system, the healthcare system, it's in corporate America. It's everywhere you look. If you really look deep, you'll see systematic racism that's been around and for so long, that has led to the many disparities that have been spoken about in the One Economy report. I just want to say that, you know, there is also some statistics in the One Economy report about the number of people of color in elected offices, because that's really critical too, because things start locally. Things start with your elected officials that can make change. So, you know, I ran for office to be a voice for all the people. And I'm just going to be really candid and transparent on this call, is that when I was running for office in West Des Moines, in spite of being called the N word twice and being called colored as I knocked on doors, I tried to not allow race to be anything as affecting my run for office. But in this time that we're in, my race is the #1 asset that's helping us get through this crisis, have these conversations that are meaningful, insightful, and important. And so when we look to try to diversify these elected bodies, whether they're on school board, whether they're on city councils or the state house, diversity and people of color and people that look different than yourselves matters, because it offers perspectives that otherwise is difficult for folks to see. So I've been involved in truly making sure that this movement has a place in West Des Moines, that this movement is welcomed in West Des Moines. I was pleased to be able to speak to 3 Black Lives Matter rallies and welcome these visitors and some of these residents here, and to show how they can voice their concerns and voice their issues. So as an elected official, I was excited to welcome them. because I didn't see it as a threat. I saw this as an opportunity for folks to walk in the streets of West Des Moines and say, hey, Black lives matter. And this is a pivotal time where we need to be awoke. We need to awaken our spirits. We need to pierce our hearts and ask, what can we do? And the previous slide showed a lot of things that you can do. But one thing we do know, silence is not an option. Actually, silence is a betrayal. It really is. It's a betrayal to this movement when we in positions can use our voice and use our influence to bring about change within our companies, to bring about change within our own family lives, to have these tough conversations with even family members, because it really does start sometimes in the home. And so I'm finding that people are saying, I'm okay, but my family's not okay. Well, I guess that means you got to start having some crucial conversations with your family. And that is what's going to help bring about change. One thing I do know, our young people get it. Our young people get it. They do not want to inherit the type of country that they see in terms of the disparities and the brutal killings of folks and all of that. So I just want to say that silence is no longer betrayal. We need to speak the painful truth about racism and privilege and power, and how the combination of those things can be either used to the good or the not so good. And so as a city council person, you know, I'm really trying to make sure that we look at things that I think affect some of these disparities, and that is making sure that, you know, we have affordable housing and pushing the needle on that. We've had a diversity audit done at the city of West Des Moines. They're looking into hiring a diversity and equity director, which is phenomenal, which is going to help guide the city of West Des Moines to really focus in on this and have a laser focus on the efforts. The West Des Moines Human Rights Commission, chaired by Sanjita, is on fire and have so much excitement about what they can do to partner with City Council to truly make sure that West Des Moines is the welcoming city that we tout to be. The welcoming city and voice for all is what's really critical. So I'm excited to be a part of that transformation. I'm excited to lend my voice to what I think will be helpful as we transcend. And I am also excited about helping and lending my voice to my white allies. I'm just going to share this, and I don't want to embarrass Mike, but Mike and I are friends. And Mike and I have known each other for a while. But it took this incident and late night email for Mike and I to have what I consider probably one of our most thoughtful conversations we've ever had. That's deeper than how are you doing? How is Nick doing? How is Big Brothers, Big Sisters doing? It's about a personal conversation about the journey that he's on. And that is what I think is hopeful about this, is that it's allowing those kinds of conversations to happen. If this was, you know, I think that, you know, that's a positive result of the chaos that we're in. Mike may disagree, but I've just had some phenomenal conversations, even via email, about his journey and what he wants to do and how he wants to lean into this space and learn. And if I could be a part of that, then that's all for the good. And so we're all in this together. I'm going to close by saying, number one, I am so appreciative of the work that Teree and Deidre have been doing on One Economy. It's been around for 3 years. It's going to have so much more legs, and we're all going to be able to participate in ways in which we can happen. And you better count, as your representative in West Des Moines, you have a voice, and I intend to use my voice. I saw Chief Scott, my police officer, police chief, on this call. And he's leaning into this space and has for a while. I chair the Public Safety Committee, so I'm a cell phone away from conversations with my police chief. And every time I call him, he's there and he listens. And so I really appreciate that kind of direction and those kinds of things happening in West Des Moines. We have to applaud the little things. And so as I close, I want to quote James Baldwin that says, "Not everything is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. So let's face the reality that we're in. Let's face that we have racism we need to deal with, systemic racism. We need reform. We need to look at what's going on in corporate America. We need to invite people that can help people pierce their hearts and truly make a systemic change. And that's what I want to offer to you today. I'm open to anything my constituents in West Des Moines would like me to consider, but know that I'm on the front line of this and I'm fighting that good fight, and we'll do it until the day I die. Thank you, Catherine.
Oh my gosh, Renee, you're amazing. We are so lucky to have you in West Des Moines. You know, you are incredible. Thank you so much for all of your inspirational speech this morning. You're just amazing. What a dynamo. Thank you for representing West Des Moines, and
Pleasure.
you have inspired all of us this morning. So thank you. You're incredible. Thank you.
Thank
so
you. It's a pleasure.
Oh my gosh. Well, the good news, we're right on time. I know a lot of our panelists were worried about that. So we're doing perfect with our timeline, and that's important. I am so now welcome and excited to introduce Mike McCoy. Mike is CEO at NCMIC. He has an incredible background. He's co-author of the amazing book, It Begs the Question. He's a passionate community supporter, and he wanted to share his personal journey on the line with us today. And we're just so excited to have Mike join us. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Catherine. My thanks to the West Des Moines Chamber for the invitation to be with you today. I have to tell you, I'm excited about the opportunity to be on this panel, but I'm also a little nervous. And as I looked at the panel, you know, I'm clearly the least qualified to be on this panel, but I hope I represent a viewpoint that might be helpful to others. And is trying to think through if I could add value or not. I started looking at the other panelists, and I saw Teree Caldwell-Johnson. And, you know, I've had the opportunity to serve on Teree's board before. And when I was on there, she was a teacher to me. She taught me about the challenges of poor and diverse immigrant population within our community. And I've heard Deidre present a number of times, and her husband is a friend of mine and a person who's been a teacher. And Marvin and I would go out and have lunch, with not past tense, present tense. We've done this for a few years now, about 3 times a year. And he'd let me ask him all the dumb questions that a white guy could ask somebody, but we had a level of trust and a level of, he offered me a level of grace, which is important. I'll come back to that theme in a minute. But he helped educate me about being Black in our community. And then Renee, of course, and it's what a pleasure and honor for me to be associated with her organization, Big Brothers Big Sisters. And she's my city council person. And what a wonderful community mentor she's been for me, and she's already referenced how valuable she's been as I think through my personal journey. And while I don't know Angela very well, I can tell you that Angela has certainly framed a number of pieces that hang in my house right now. And so I thank her for that, and I look forward to getting to know Sanjita and Sandrah as we move forward. When I was telling my wife about being on the panel, I said, you know, it kind of reminds me of the Sesame Street song, "One of these things is not like the other." That would be me. But today I'm just coming to you from my own personal perspective. I've been very impressed with leaders in our community. And I'm impressed from a standpoint of other white leaders that want to do the right thing, not quite sure what the right thing is, or if they do, maybe not how to go about it. And you got to start someplace. And so as I thought through my personal journey, and as I think through conversations I've had with friends and people in our organization, and I thought that, you know, the first thing we have to be willing to do as an individual, and it sounds easy, but we have to be willing to listen. But listening can actually be a little scary and take a little bit of courage, because in order to listen, we've got to initiate a conversation. and you've got to be willing to initiate that conversation. Then after you have that conversation, you've got to be willing to learn. And what do I mean by learn? I mean, you've got to reflect on what you just heard. What did I hear? And that leads to then do. And as a result of that, what am I going to do? What can I do? What action can I take based on what I just heard, based on the conversation that I just had? And, you know, that's not as easy as it sounds. First of all, you've got to be willing to do that. But to be willing to do that, you've got to be willing to be uncomfortable. I think a lot of good leaders today are, one of the things that makes them good leaders is they get comfortable being uncomfortable. But we've got to get ourselves in that position where we're okay being uncomfortable. But in a conversation like this, that also leads to being vulnerable. And I think leaders aren't always good at being vulnerable, but it's really hard to have a sincere conversation in a space like this if we're not willing to be vulnerable. One of the things that I think helps in that scenario is making sure that as we wade into those conversations that we are authentic, that we don't try to be something that we're not, that we don't try to be smarter than we are, we don't try to be holier than thou, we just wade in as who we are with our strengths and our weaknesses. And I found that my personal experience has been, if I'm willing to do those things, then the people I'm having conversations with are willing to offer me grace. Because I don't do this a lot in terms of these hard conversations that I probably should have been having a long time ago, but I'm having now. And because I haven't done it a lot, I'm not very good at it. And I'm worried, right? I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'm going to offend somebody. I'm going to do it wrong. And you don't want to do that. But I think as you demonstrate the authenticity around the willingness and willing to be vulnerable out there, I'm pleased to say that everybody I've had this conversation with, and now I can tell you it's been, at least for me, a lot of people, have all offered me grace and have all been willing to share with me some very emotional responses. And it's clear to me, as a person that considers myself in tune and sensitive, it's clear to me I have no idea about the Black experience in America or in our community. And so this has been quite an education for me, and something that we're trying to be focused on in our organization. And I think what I'll do, Catherine, is maybe I'll stop there, and that's more about my personal journey. And if there's questions about other things that we may be doing in our organization, then I'm happy to share that should we have time.
Mike, I love your personal story. You could make that into a blog, and I think you should share that with so many people. We're so happy to record this today because, you know, just what you shared, the being vulnerable, authentic, being willing to be uncomfortable, listening. I mean, you gave such a wonderful reflection that I think a lot of people could use right now from your perspective. It's very, very deep.
Well, thank you, Catherine. And be quite honest with you, I've had good teachers, that many of which are on this call today. So that's been huge in my life.
So thank you for being authentic and bold today, and willing to share your story. It's beautiful and good for so many people to hear right now, because it is an uncomfortable conversation, right? It's a critical conversation, but we're having that. And thank you for being a leader and having this conversation with us online today, Mike. Thank you for modeling for others. We really, really appreciate it. I am now excited to introduce Angela Jackson. Angela, as I mentioned early on, she is a dynamo. She's an attorney, entrepreneur, management consultant, and she owns the Great Frame Up, which it sounds like many people enjoy in their homes, me included. So Angela, we're so happy to have you with us today on the panel.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Deidre and Teree, for your excellent presentation. I knew that you would cover the numbers and cover the finances, and I thank you for that. Thank you for Renee for sharing your heart and the work that you've done on the front lines for the Black Lives Matter movement in all your life. And Mike, I appreciate your heart sharing that and being a leader in your space. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but I want to also be very transparent. My name is Angela Williams Jackson. I am the daughter of Arlene, the daughter of Elsie, the daughter of Sarah. And that's important for me to share because none of you really have that experience for you to understand who I am. I came to Des Moines in '99, August of '99, because of a leader who was a bold visionary, but more importantly, because of a board who elected the very first African-American CEO, and that was Maytag. And he had a purpose and a vision to elect leaders around him that were diverse, that were people of color. And so I got hired as in-house counsel for Maytag, and that's what brought me to Iowa over 20 years ago. So in that journey, I have been wonderfully appreciative of the community in Des Moines, of West Des Moines, of being able to start a business in West Des Moines, and also being a member of the West Des Moines Police Citizens Academy. So there's a lot of things that we do. I'm also on the Iowa Civil Rights Commission. There are a lot of hats that we wear, but I'm gonna be very transparent and very honest. I am tired, okay? We are all dealing with COVID, and so I know you guys are tired too. We are all fighting. I've been fighting and doing things for justice since college when we marched against apartheid. So this is not a one-day toolkit unpacking. This is a life. This is a long journey. And so I want you who are listening to think of this as not something that you're listening to today, but this is something you're committed to learn about and participate in moving forward for the rest of your life. Because every day when I wake up, but I am always a Black woman. I'm always an African-American woman, and I'm always a business owner, and I'm a woman of faith. All of those things are who I am. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, but I'm all those things every day. It's not a flavor of the month for me. So I want you to share that with you and be authentic with everyone who is currently on this toolkit Zoom call, and those who will listen in the future, to be in it for the long haul. Bailey, you can advance the slide. So I think it's important that we talk about this as a community. So that's why I was transparent. It's kind of like we're all sitting together around a coffee table in a kitchen. What does it mean to be an ally? Being an ally is having a community conversation. So congratulate yourself. You guys are all allies. Everyone who's on this Zoom call, everyone who's participating is an ally. What we do is we like to talk about numbers. So I thank Deidre and I thank One Economy. I thank Teree for sharing the numbers, because now we have that. On our West Des Moines Chamber website, we say we are the #1 most diverse suburb in Iowa. What does that mean? What does that really mean? Is that a number? Or is that something that we live and breathe every day? Bailey, you can advance the slide. I would like to have a conversation for the C-suite. So for those who don't know, C-suite conversations are for CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, people who are decision makers, people who are leaders. And so those of you who are CEOs who are listening, those of you who have access to CEOs, please take this information back to them and share it. I've been doing diversity and inclusion training for 20 plus years. So I started when I was 10. So I've been doing this for a little while. It's critical to have Black people on your corporate boards. I think a lot of times we have amazing leaders in our community and they are doing great work in the nonprofit space. But my mentor told me many years ago, Jules L'Enfant, that I needed to get on a corporate board, that we need to have a seat at the table that's making economic decisions. And so I would encourage you, I would encourage the businesses in West Des Moines and in Polk County to look around in the boardroom where the big decisions are being made, to see who is courageous and a leader and who can hire that first Black CEO of the organization, like the corporate boards who are leaders do. Number two, the C-suite conversation needs to have focused recruiting. So at the time of my hire, they hired a headhunting firm, but not one that was a mass firm. One that was specifically targeted to hiring people of color, encouraging them to hire Black attorneys. Black attorneys are underrepresented nationally in corporations. So focused recruiting means you go to the sources, you go to historically Black colleges and universities. So the term is HBCUs. A lot of people don't know what that is, so I spelled it out. Every college, every university, every junior college has a Black student organization. You may have attended that college and never knew that, but most of them do. And I would say that you can recruit from those historically Black colleges and universities. You can recruit from those affinity organizations. And I would encourage you to have an internship program where you hire a Black student and that student needs to be paid. Because you heard the numbers earlier, $30,000 is the median income. That student cannot work for free. I could never work for free. I usually had 1 or 2 jobs. I'm not unusual. I'm sure many people have many jobs during their college career. But an internship is critical because it gives you access. You have relationships, and thousands upon thousands of people receive their first job offers from internships. So that's something that you can have in terms of a C-suite conversation with those in your human resource department who are hiring managers. In addition, you need to have a D&I statement in the corporate and business strategic goal platform, not just something that's a diversity statement that's in your handbook, but something that's strategic, something that is used and looked at and measured, something that is integrated in the organization from the top down, something that is in every aspect, from your finances to your logistics to your manufacturing, every aspect of your organization, and it should be part of your strategic goals. That is something that every corporation, business, you have retreats, and that should be something that is followed up, measured, and everyone should be held accountable for that. The fourth thing in terms of a C-suite conversation that should be held is a diversity supplier program. Lots of companies have supplier programs. Lots of companies have goals, but they don't have procurement goals where people are held accountable. Even in the state of Iowa, there are goals. But you can have a goal and then you can also have people not be focused on their goal or held accountable for their goal. So having a diversity supplier program allows more people to have a seat at the table. Shirley Chisholm had a wonderful quote, said, okay, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring your own chair. Well, I had the honor of getting my picture taken with her at one of our national conventions. And she was one of the first people to run as an African-American woman for president. People don't even know that. Way before Barack, way before Jesse Jackson. And so people have oftentimes not understood that supplier diversity gives you a seat at the table. But without a goal, oftentimes you hear, well, you have to make sure that the people are qualified. I'm a business owner. I've been in business for almost 15 years. I would not be in businesses if I was not qualified. So we can stop having that precursor of a conversation, and we can make sure that we look at their references, yes, and make sure they can deliver, yes, but also have a goal that you hold people accountable for. The fifth thing is, and this is so critical, when you are in a professional environment, you should hire people, yes, who are diverse, very important, but you also need to have that tied to their performance. So if I'm going to give you a highly rated performance score, if you're going to be and exceed expectations, I should see that you have made measurable efforts to hire a diverse staff. And if you have not, that should be reflected in your performance. I'm not saying you don't deserve a raise. I'm just saying that that should be something that's measured, specific, accountable, and measured. So these are C-suite conversations that you may not feel comfortable with. But think about what Mike said. It's time to be uncomfortable, because some people have been uncomfortable every day, and some of us are tired. And so because you want to be an ally, I think that you want to be an ally. I'm so appreciative of the 100+ people who have registered for this. So I want you to take these 5 points, and whichever ones you feel comfortable with, move forward with them and take them to your leadership. You can advance the slide. Now, this is a quote that I heard from some wonderful women who were sharing. It's called the Black Slavery Project, and a good friend of mine is one of the producers. And one of the women said, people are what they do, not what they say. And so I just stole the quote because it was a great quote. And I know my time is up, but I'll go quickly. It's so important for us to support Black and African-American businesses as we support local businesses. So we say, support small businesses, that's critical, but there are very few African-American and Black businesses. So that's important. And then we need to have individual committed leadership. So that's people like Mike, that's people like Catherine. I thank her for the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. You can email me and you can become a member. And then the last slide, please advance. These are resources. Stay aware of your biases. There's a movie, Just Mercy. It talks about justice. It's free, no excuse. There's a movie called Best Enemies, Best of Enemies. The reason why I mentioned this one is because, you know what? I went to school in Durham, North Carolina, and the movie is set in Durham, North Carolina. I went to Duke, and it's a conversation that we need to have in our community. And so I encourage you to watch that. And then there's a YouTube session about Lost Buxton. Many people don't even know about Buxton, but Buxton was a viable community in southern Iowa, many Black businesses. So as we talk about diversity, as we talk about best practices, here are some resources for best practices in diversity and supplier diversity. In the Iowa Targeted Small Business Directory, that's another resource. But I want us to think about that first question. What does it mean to be the #1 diverse suburb? Do we have multiple diverse businesses? Do we have multiple Black businesses that are viable in our suburb? Do we have an opportunity to bring that Lost Buxton experience in an economic way, in a strong way, to our community? So those are resources for you, and I'm open to virtual coffees anytime. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you so much. And again, we are so happy that you're chairing our Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Committee. And on our website, we have resources that you can look at now that tie into how can you support and be an ally for the Black and the African American community. We're going to be adding to those. And so these slides, this taped event today, this will all be under that resources. So as allies, continue to plug in as we continue to have this conversation. Just like you're saying, Angela, this is a journey. We need to be in it for the long haul. This is just not a today thing and we forget about it, right? This is a new journey that we're all going to be on for the rest of our lives. Exactly what you said, Angela. So thank you for educating us and thank you for your inspiration. We're doing great on time, so I want nobody to panic. So we're doing really good. We've kind of built in some extra time too, so this is fabulous. I'm excited to introduce Sanjita Pradhan. Sanjita is chair of the West Des Moines Human Rights Commission and program director at the Greater Des Moines Partnership. Her resume is incredible. I'm going to have Sanjita tell us more about herself, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I don't know what about all of you. I am already so inspired and fired up. Such a great lineup of speakers. Mike, I think you said one is not like the other, and I truly feel that way in this group as well. And we didn't really plan our order, but I think it's working really, really well. I've heard so much about you, Angela, but I haven't had an opportunity to meet with you. So great to hear from you, and I think our message is going to be slightly similar. So as I was thinking about how I am going to use my 10 minutes in this stage today, I really feel like today is like a trailer of movies, and I would like to encourage everyone to reach out to each one of these speakers that you heard today, invite them back to have a deeper dive conversation on each of those conversations that they presented on. So I just was like wondering about how to best use the 10 minutes that I have in this stage today, as Catherine puts it. And I recently wrote a blog about how corporate America can play a role in fighting racism. And I thought I'd just like to touch on that part today, because I truly feel like corporate America does have a role, and we can do this. To start us off, I really like this quote from Dr. King. He says, people fail to get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they do not know each other, and they don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other. I really think that this quote from Dr. King is so relevant in our inclusion conversation, because we are the other. There is lots of other in our community now, and when we don't take the time to learn about each other, when we don't take the time to know each other, we form stereotypes about each other, and that's when things don't go right. And so my argument today for you is lots of people go to work. There is a job, there is an employer, and there's people. And without us going to work, there is no work, there is no job, right? 158 million people go to work every day, and we spend 1/3 of our life in our workplaces every day, right? And workplace is probably the only place a lot of times when a lot of us meet somebody who's different than us. Different race, different religion, different sexual orientation, ideologies, name it, right? And this is why I truly feel like their workplace is very well suited for us to have this conversation. Workplace diversity and inclusion initiatives have the ability to educate large number of people at a time, depending on the size of your organization. It could be 5, it could be hundreds, it could be thousands. It is a journey, and so we have to start with conversations. Workplaces have the ability through their D&I initiatives to bring those conversations, to help change mindsets, to help us learn about the other, so we can fight racism in that way. Sorry, my son is really wanting to have breakfast just now. So I'm not going to talk a lot about the business case for diversity because Angela touched on it. And there's lots and lots of research about why diversity is important for your organization, that diverse organizations are better, innovative, are productive, and gain financial and have higher financial returns, that they can come up, that they do well in every aspect, right? Just take some time to learn a little bit more about that if you don't know already, but I'm sure you're already familiar with that. I'm just going to skip this because I just mentioned. And so why do we have to do diversity inclusion? Why do we should have some diversity inclusion initiatives? Complying with EEO laws is just one piece of it, right? And that is not a carrot and a stick. It's not a stick mechanism, but it is a fact. You all hear about lawsuits all the time. Open EEO's website today and see how many lawsuits were filed and how much money was paid for lawsuits just in the month of June. Your mind will boggle. And there's lots of news that will not make it to the headlines, but it happens every day. And we have to get ahead of it. We have to be preventative. We have to be proactive about it to save legal fees, our brand value. Changing demographics, we have heard over and over again that our demographics are changing, or we don't look like the same America that we were 20, 30 years ago, and it's not going to look the same 20, 30 years from now. That is our workforce. That is who will be coming to work for us. That's why it's very important for us to know who is our demographics and how do we work with them? Globalization, I mean, we cannot escape from globalization in today's economy. So these are just some reasons why corporations I'm encouraging to think about what's in it for me, right? And at the end of the day, truly it's a competitive advantage that will help you to thrive, your business thrive and take you further along than folks who are not investing in this. So what's in it for me? So inclusion is a systematic business approach to ensure everyone feels belonged. They can bring their whole self to work and use their full human potential, right? And great, good, inclusive organizations focus on these 3 Ps. People, why? Because they're the center of our organizations. Without people, we don't have an employer, we don't have a workplace, we don't have a business. They are the key in our organizations, and happy employees are productive employees. They are able to use their full potential. We have created the space for them to come and express their ideas, and that's what our employers want. And eventually, if we focus on people and allow them to use their human potential, they're productive. And what employer doesn't want these 3 things? I don't know. So just a quick little story and example. I don't know if many of you who's heard this story about Flaming Hot Cheetos. So Flaming Hot Cheetos, I don't know if you know, the idea of Flaming Hot Cheetos within Frito-Lay came from a janitor who was of Mexican heritage. It came through a process where there's a challenge, there's a suggestion box, right? Think about the suggestion box that you may have in your organization. Is it dusty? Is it you only take suggestions from a certain group of people? So that's through that process, the janitor was able to pitch that idea to say, you know what? Love Cheetos, would be great to have spicy Cheetos. I love spicy food. There's a whole community in my circle who would love to eat spicy food, and hence we have a multi-billion-dollar industry within Frito-Lay that also led to gave birth to a chain of spicy other snacks. So just by being able to allow every person's thought to be able to share, they did not say, oh, what do you have to say? You may not have to say anything. So he was able to use his human potential to advance business. So that's just a quick small example. Just to hone in on what Angela said, this is what my pitch was going to be, is there are some common mistakes when organizations are starting to think about doing diversity inclusion initiative. Do not do random things. Sometimes organizations feel the need to do, I need to do something. Let me do an event. Let me do some training. No. You got to stop. We have to wait. We had to put some breaks in there. We really have to take some time to dig into what is the business case for our organizations. I know, and I have heard this from many business leaders today, we want to do the right thing, and that's awesome, and that's great. But we have to think about the naysayers. We have to think about the longevity. We have to think about the sustainability. And once you identify a business case for your organization that's tied to your overall goals of your organization and the mission of your organization and the vision of your organization, it's easier to sell it to your stakeholders, to the naysayers, for sustainability, for succession planning, and things of that nature. Sometimes we focus on our reputation instead of addressing the problem. So let's stop doing that, and again, figure out how to make very intentional, have intentional initiatives that addresses key problems. We cannot place our hope in one single intervention. We cannot say, oh, let's work on gender first, or race first, or this first, or that first. And oh, we've done a lot of work to bring a lot of women in our organizations, and I think we're doing great. That strategy will not work for long term. Angela honed in on this as much as possible and better than I can, but one of the key problems that we see in diversity inclusion initiatives is sometimes people do not have measurable goals. A lot of times, even trainings, when you do random trainings, we want to think about, what do we want to accomplish by offering this training? Do we have to have a pre-questionnaire, post-questionnaire? We can measure this over time and see, measure the change in attitude, change in behavior, change in retention. It is truly a retention initiative. Inclusion is a retention tool. Like more people, more inclusion initiative you have, more people feel belonged in an organization, and the longer they stay. And you all know the formula for how much cost it is for an organization every time you lose someone, and you have to invest that time to bring someone new, and the training time and all of that stuff. And I also see sometimes it's isolated to a few teams in a larger organization. There is one team who's running faster than the other. There's one team whose leader is a little bit more interested and aware, and starts an initiative within his or her team, but then it's not tied again to the overall organization. And I would say that would not be a great idea. So what do we do? What are some what are some best practices? I think a lot of you have mentioned this already. Leadership commitment is key. We have seen some inclusion initiatives where the leader assigns it to an HR person, or hires someone, or gives it to a team of, a task force or council. But if the leader is not committed, that's not going to take us so far. Like Mike, we know of so many other leaders. You have to invest your own time. You have to have your own personal journey. And when Mike can say something like that to his team, it will speak volumes, and it is a great example of an inclusive leader, and that will have a lot more impact in the success. Again, Angela's talked about this, but take time to lay a very strong foundation. Look at your overall strategic plan and see how D&I can be woven in every aspect of your organization. It is not a role of a one or two person. It is not the role of just a diversity inclusion champion or task force or council in your organization. Everybody should be able to live and breathe this at some point. But leadership, once the top leader is bought in, we have to make sure all the middle managers are bought in. It has to be tied to their goals. All the learnings that they have, what did they do with it? Did they hire a new person that's different, that's diverse background? Did they go to a new market? Did they do something different with the training, learning that they've had? Those are things that can be put in their goals and should be measured. This is another thing that I like to hone in is sometimes like it's a cost. People think of it as a cost, but all D&I initiatives should be financially viable. What do I mean by that? It can, whatever you try and whatever initiative you do through your D&I initiative, everything can be measured, and it should be tied how it saved money for the organization or how it brought additional revenues to the organization. It can do these two things. We don't measure them, and we can't tell the story. That's what we should do. Retention, like I said, over time, did we have lower turnover? Did we save money through our retention efforts? Did we go to a new market like Frito-Lay? Did we tap into a new market that's out there that we're not tapping into, that we're not marketing? That these things can be measured, and it should be viable. I think I've talked about this a little bit, but people ask me, what's an example of how to measure things, right? So just as some examples, we can measure employee engagement. Gallup did a survey, and the numbers of people who are engaged in an organization is astounding. Gallup poll says 75% of our workforce are not engaged with us today. And think about the human potential we are losing. I always say, think about somebody sitting in a meeting, being afraid to open up and share their thoughts and minds, and think about $1 million idea losing right there and there. And so these are things that we can measure, just as examples. Lastly, I'd just like to say that we have to look at D&I as an important function of your organization and not just a right thing and a nice thing to do anymore. You wouldn't have a marketing department without having someone who to lead the department, who has experience and knowledge and background to lead the department, right? This is what we need to start doing for D&I. Once you have a dedicated professional who knows how to do this thing, who knows how to do a plan, who knows how to measure, that that is the best way to think about it. And I think we need to start thinking about it as a function, an important function of the organization, and not just a nice thing to do. So it's my last slide. I don't know if I'm good in time, but with all our, this is our immediate timely conversation. And when people are thinking about what should I do, what can I do, there are so many things that I couldn't fit in my 10 minutes today, but this is just like a 10, I think there's 10 in there. You can commit to 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 of these things. These are some practical things that we can start taking to your organization and start doing today. Commit to being an anti-racist organization. How can you do that? Look at your personnel policies. Think about things that are in your organization that are excluding a large group of people right off the bat. Hiring practices. We've heard this over and over again that African American sounding names do not get called for interviews. In a more shocking fact is that white resumes with a criminal record have a twice as likely higher to be called for an interview than African American names, right? How do we tackle that? Those are things that you can look into your organization and see what are the systemic things in your organization that excluding a large group of people from being in the pool. Commit to pay equity and livable wage. Do an equity audit, pay equity audit in your organization. I bet you will find that women are being paid less. And think about the intersectionality. Women who are gay, bisexual, women who are transgender, women who are different, other different dimensions of diversity, disability, race, ethnicity. When we layer these things up, where we become more disadvantaged. If you are in a position to increase your minimum wage, please do so. You all know, like Bank of America announced at some point 2 years ago, I believe, that they're going to pay $20 an hour for no matter what role in their organization. Something to that effect, if you have the ability. Commit to creating a talent pipeline and programming for people of color to move up in the ladder. Why is this important? Because the starting line for us is not the same. We are 10, 15, 20 steps behind. We do not get the same privileges and same advantages and disadvantages in the organization. Johnson & Johnson company has this, and there are probably others. I'm just giving you an example of Johnson & Johnson. They pick people who are high, they put them on a fast track and allow them to move up in the corporate ladder. This is one way you can ensure that you have people of color in all levels of your organization, especially the top. Commit to advocacy. All of you have your government affairs and lobbying. Commit to advocacy and advocate for policies and laws that are disenfranchising a lot of our communities. Again, Angela touched on this. Commit to a supplier diversity program. This is one true way how you can really, truly, monetarily support and shift the power to diverse suppliers, to diverse small business owners who are of diverse backgrounds. They are not in the pool to compete with you today for getting your procurement, your contracts. Make sure you are intentional about it. I am hosting a webinar with a national speaker on supplier diversity on June 30th. Catherine, I'll send it to you. Feel free to send it out. We are bringing in a national speaker on this, and we are really excited. So hope you all, if you can join. Again, looking at our employment applications, manning the box, education requirement, blind applications. These are just some examples. Commit to an employee emergency relief fund or low-cost loan program, because nearly 40% of Americans and disproportionately Black and people of color lack savings. Deidre and touched on it, and lots of examples, real core data on point on this. They're one car breaking away from not making able to work. They're one sickness away from work. They're one emergency away from being spiraling down. And so that's one way you can support your workforce. And lastly, to commit planned giving and think about where your philanthropic dollars are going. Please make sure that a large portion of your philanthropic dollars are going to minority serving organizations and Black serving organizations. So that's all. I know I probably went over time, but there's lots of resources in our website, and please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjita. Great practical ideas. There's so much good information that's being shared today. And again, we will have these resources up on our website. This will be on our YouTube channel. So we hope everybody shares. Thank you so much. There's so much great content today. Incredible. I'm now excited to introduce Sandrah, and I asked Sandrah how to pronounce her last name this morning, and she said it's like nice to meet you, which is so beautiful. So Sandrah's last name is Nasimiyu.
Yeah, there you go.
Did I do that okay?
You got it.
I love that. Well, and Sandrah went to Valley High School. She was on the debate team. She's been leading a lot of our protests lately. She's an inspirational speaker. It sounds like she's working on maybe 1 hour of sleep because she's been tirelessly working as an advocate right now. And so thank you for being on the line with us this morning, Sandrah.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. So like she said, my name is Sandrah Nasimiyu. One of the biggest protests I put together was actually here in West Des Moines. When thinking about combining business and this conversation today and what to say, I truly did not know what to talk about. But last night, I went to a protest in Des Moines for Black Lives Matter. And the events that happened made me see how the DMPD is kind of like business. A peaceful protest, as this was happening, the DMPD blocked off 5 miles in every direction, including the freeway. I saw businesses in the old neighborhood that I lived in Des Moines, white-owned businesses that took people of color's money, get all of their stuff out of the way because they were waiting for a riot to occur, which, as a reminder, white people usually cause the riots that happened. These white businesses not only proceeded to lock up all of their doors, but then come outside, stand on the roofs of their businesses, and look down upon the people of color who are fighting for our lives, recording, waiting for one of us to fuck up. That is what they were waiting for. And many of them were waiting to get, I heard so many slurs come out of business owners' mouths for the fact that we stood there in front of police officers and just asked them to listen to us for 5 seconds. I watched as police officers smirked as they knew that they got a gun and they got a better chance of making it out of this alive than we do. This proceeds to go downtown where they use military tactics, where they tell us to leave because these are public properties, as if we are not the public, as if we are not serving our First Amendment right the same way that white folks do. I had a white ally that came with me and became a straggler in the back. And when she fell down, the police officers asked her, "Are you okay?" But then I watched them push the Black woman next to her to the ground and arrest her, and then spray the other Black woman next to her too. I watched the DMPD get so aggressive last night when we were being beyond peaceful. We had 20 aides on hand, and not a single one had to be used until the police decided to get aggressive. How does this transfer to business? Because the officers that I saw who were smirking, they get comfortable. Like companies get comfortable. They hide behind their money because they've gotten to the point where their money is all that matters. But what's crazy is business owners need to realize without the people, you don't have money. We make you rich. And I promise you, I will not back my money behind people who I know don't care about my life. 2, the military tactics that they were using, in that moment, they don't see Black folks as assets. Business companies do not see Black folks as assets. We do the right thing, we listen, we comply, but it's not enough. Because before we are given a chance, we have already been robbed of it based on years of racist preachings in the business world. During the military tactics that they were using on, I promise you, 25 years and younger, most of us, they tell us to leave. We get on the sidewalk. When they tell us to leave, we ask, which direction do you want us to leave from, DMPD? Every direction we're trying to go to get back to our cars, you have 100 people in SWAT cars waiting for us. What direction do you want us to go? So when you see Black folks in your company, sit there and be like, what do you want from me? Because they have given you everything they can to better your company, but the work that they give you is not enough. You surround them with all these obstacles for why they cannot proceed to get higher end jobs in the company. Do you know for most management companies, 3.2% are Black? And we're not talking about the line of employers down below. I'm talking about in the boardrooms. What do they look like? Third, it is a thing that I see constantly when it comes to business, and it is a thing that's going on right now. Protecting white folks. Someone who believes in their work, who truly believes in their business, will always dream of expansion. However, expansion of a business is pointless if you don't grow out your target market to be past what you know and what the business world wants, which is white people. And white people learn from white people. So it's hard. It's just the same knowledge being bounced around, and you cannot grow when you're surrounded by weeds. And what I mean by weeds is toxic behaviors. If you have coworkers, employers who have had a history of making remarks that are racist, xenophobic, transphobic, all of that, call them out. Because I see a lot of companies right now trying to do damage control for the fact that they've had workers who they have known for years have said things, done actions, and clearly showed that they are not meant to be part of the team. However, because of George Floyd, the sad fact that George Floyd is forcing these companies to come into the spotlight and address the problems within their company is sad. And most of them are just doing it to cover their ass. If you are about the work that you say you are about, it is going to go beyond this. I think for someone who's 19 and really just getting into the adult world and trying to figure out everything, from the people who have spoke today, they're spitting facts to you. They are giving you everything you need, all the resources to do better. I come in here with the youth point of view, and I worry at times at what it would be like to get a job in corporate America. What it's like. I'm so sorry, y'all. I am running on 1 hour of sleep and the frustrations in my head. The business.
You're good. Take your time. Take your time.
The business world is an extension of the government. The business world plays an amazing, a large impact in what affects people in this country. Who you target. You cannot talk about wanting to see a change, but every time I look at your board of directors, every time I look at your products, every time I look at the person who's shaking my hand, I know for a fact, no matter what I want from this business or what I give into this business, I will never actually be part of the business, but just a pawn. We need to do better. To everybody who owns a business, who's in this call, who wants to be an ally, who wants to do better, a lot of this doesn't fall on Black people. Let me say this right now. POCs, we've been writing on this for a long time. And now that the white folks, allies, I'm so happy that you are coming into this conversation. But it's gonna have to really start with you focusing on other white folks. White people have to talk to white people about what's going on. White people got to call out their white friends. And I've heard this 3 times now. I mean, they're such a good partner and they've done so much for the company and they brought in so many clients. Well, congratulations. You clearly aren't dreaming big enough. Because someone who really wants their business to grow is willing to take an L, which is slang for you're willing to take that loss. The loss of that one worker who brought in clients when you know you could get more clients if you actually had people who cared about the company. And the company is the people. So if they don't care about the people, why are they part of your company? Fire them. We play too much tic-tac-toe and tiptoeing around people about the real problems going on. Fire them. Give them the opportunity to learn. They don't take it. They don't do better. Fire them. No more going around the bush about why you don't want to do better. Don't try to do a PR stunt right now, but then later on, when I check in 3 months, I still see you have the same workers, employees, board members who do the same thing that you guys said you are fighting against. It is hypocritical. And it is offensive to the youth, especially people in my age group who are trying to get into these corporate worlds, who are trying to just break into the job market overall. But then we are forced to be silenced. We have to comply in order to fit into a business where we know that they are not dreaming big enough. They are not doing the best they can. I'm going to end this on, we all are in this call for a reason. We want to do better. We want to help our allies do better. But if everything that we say right now is not practiced, not today, but I mean even a year from now, I hate to break it, but you have wasted the past hour and 30 minutes of your life. Take everything we say, not with a grain of salt, but the whole ocean. Do better. Thank you.
You're amazing, Sandrah. Thank you so much for your perspective and your honesty and your authenticity and everything you've given us today. You know, we love to hear from our young people, and your perspective is so important. We don't hear your perspective that often. And so we really appreciate you being here with us, imparting your words and your emotions and your love for what you're doing and the change that you're making. And so we all really care deeply about you being here today, and everybody. It's been such an incredible event, and I was nervous hosting this event. I didn't sleep well last night. This is a critical conversation. This is a hard conversation to have, right? I think all of us were a little nervous. So, and like you said, this is a journey. This is the long haul. Don't take it with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of the ocean. And we hope this is the start of making change for West Des Moines, for our businesses, Sandrah. Like you're mentioning, this is a journey. And I hope that we opened up that conversation for everybody. I hope we opened up everybody's hearts. And I really hope that we make change in our communities, in our businesses, as individuals. And again, we are going to start with some resources. We're excited about our new diversity committee. We are going to continue this from here to forward. The Chamber's been around for 96 years, and you can expect that we'll be doing this conversation for 96 more years. So thank you everybody for being on this panel. We ended just almost exactly on time. I want to thank Security National Bank for your support, Ray, and sponsorship, Amy with Ariane. Thank you so much for making this possible, this kind of programming, and all of our incredible Teree, Deidre, Renee, Mike, Angela, Sandrah, Sanjita. You were all beautiful today, and I'm moved. And I just want to thank everybody, wish everybody a happy, wonderful afternoon. So thanks for being part of this conversation.
Everyone.
Thank you for supporting Black businesses, and thank you, Sandrah, for sharing your heart.
Y'all have a great day. And remember, next year, same thing. Keep it up.
Catherine, on behalf of Security National Bank, thank you for allowing us to be a sponsor of such an esteemed panelist group in today's program and the whole series. Have a great day.
Feel free to unmute as you're leaving and make any comments you wish. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone.
Thank